Tiny Group podcast, we're welcoming Katherine. Katherine, how are you?
I am great, thank you. I'm so excited to be here and chat to you today.
Yay, me too. And chatting finally, because what you don't know, dear listener, this is like seriously take 3-ish because we both had technology crap on us today. So I'm lighting a candle for the technology gods so that this is now going according to plan.
So fingers crossed, third time lucky.
Yeah, third time's the storm. Yes. So before we go into our today's topic of like the seasons of visibility, and especially sustainable visibility as an introvert, tell us, like, can you briefly walk us through your story, like how you started, how you got where you're today, like kind of like what were the pivotal moments and crossroads for you?
This is always difficult to distill down into one sentence because I just feel like it has been an ongoing journey and just moving along from one stage to another, and it really does become like a quest that you're on, right? So the start of it, I guess, was that when I was in high school and 15 years old, I don't know what it's like in your area of the world, but here it's like 15. You have to choose your subjects to in your senior years, and that determines what you get into at uni, and then they basically tell you you're deciding the next 40-50 years of your life, which
in your entire
that would
life,
freak me out now. I'm 37 and that would freak me out now. So at 15, that's such a huge pressure to put on a kid.
God, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so, like I just my only like sentiment was like, I hate this school, I want to get out.
Yes.
Like that, yeah, I don't know, wasn't so smart, but
totally get that. My mom always says don't peak in high school. But yeah, I completely understand. And it's just so much pressure to put on you. And even if someone, like I said that to me now, I would panic because I know from all of the years since then that that's just not how the world actually works. That maybe is how it used to work, sure.
Yeah.
But we have so many options and pathways available to us now. Yeah. And at the time when I was 15, I was like a big movie nerd and I loved movies and TV. So I kind of went, okay, I'm going to do that. And worked in TV until I was in my late 20s. But along the way had moved to Sydney where all the work was and started a blog just to keep in contact with my friends and family back home. And as what became a bit of a creative outlet, because as glamorous as TV sounds, it really just isn't as creatively fulfilling as people might think.
No, and if it's I don't know, if Australian TV is anything like Swiss TV, there are also some very difficult personalities to work with in TV.
Yeah. Yes. And it is a super extroverted industry. And
oh God, yeah.
What a joke.
Borderline narcissistic.
To be kind of like a quite introverted person and to be working in such an industry that is such big personalities was just absolutely exhausting. And so coming home and writing my blog when it was in the days of like where Tumblr was the thing and everyone had a blog and you'd go around and visit all your friends' blogs and leave comments. It was like before, it was really like right when Instagram was just starting. Like that's how long
but you still could just take pictures of your food and we're like, yay.
It was just your feet. It was your feet and your food and those hideous filters.
Oh my God, so yes. The one that turned everything kind of like sepia and like the dark edge. Oh, I love that. Was my favorite one.
Yeah. And so it became back then. Yeah, for sure. And it was like all about finding the street art and the things around your neighborhood that you could take cool arty photos of. Sure.
I love that.
Bit different today.
Oh God,
bit different today. Yeah. But yeah, I kind of always call myself an accidental entrepreneur because it was never really in my plan or my DNA to be super entrepreneurial or to be thinking I would end up with my own business. I really had my heart set on working in TV until it just occurred to me that it just wasn't the right path. And so I kind of fell into coaching as well, and through one of my blogging friends got into the kind of pilot round of a coaching academy
Yeah.
program, trained to become a coach. And then, you know, there's a lot of pressure to pick a niche and make sure that you really focus on
do the funnel, build
specific
the email list.
do all of the things in like a step-by-step process. And this is like a really important thing that I think is part of my story that I like to say to people who are especially just starting out. Sometimes you don't know until you've done it for a while what you actually want to do.
Yeah.
And so I was a full-time coach for a year before I looked back, and I was kind of focusing on, I thought, you know, people in their late 20s who were similar to me, had been on this journey, had this career goal, and then that all kind of fell apart and then they were in that place of I don't know what to do now. And it wasn't until a year later I looked back and realized I had not worked with one person who was in that situation in their life, despite the fact I was targeting all my content and my messaging at that.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I know it's so random. And the thing that I was really talking to people about was their energy, was being an introvert, was starting a business as an introvert, and the energy that it takes to be online, to be promoting yourself, and to be putting a work out into the world, you know, kind of on the internet, which is a big deal for everyone. But I think especially if you're someone who is more private, who does maybe have a tendency to overthink things, it can be a really big deal for us. So it kind of, it's just like, similar to the name of your podcast, it's just taking the winding roads and picking up those pieces and those breadcrumbs along the way. And I still think I'm still on that path, I'm still on that journey, and it's a constant evolution of just, you know, admiring the scenery and then picking up the pieces.
That's like the such important point, right? Like, because you said like almost kind of like apologetically, well, I'm still on this journey. Well, thank God you are, because if you weren't, like, that would literally be the end.
Yeah,
right? Like,
for sure.
It's this new approach of like, that's sometimes where our parents give us the eye roll when we're like, I don't know, deciding on a new career in our 40s or something, like, or 30s, where they're like, well, what you already have, like, in education and like what? Well, it's lifelong learning. It's just, I don't know, I feel like that could be fun to do. So I do it, right? Like, that sometimes, that journey mindset, that is truly different. And I love what you said about picking up the pieces, right? Like the little breadcrumbs. It's so interesting. You're seeing a breadcrumb, kind of like Hansel and Gretel. Like, you see a breadcrumb, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna pick this one up. It looks delicious. And then you go to another one, and then you may see another one, and it doesn't, like, because you're so in like focusing on the breadcrumbs and everything around, like, it doesn't really, they make sense to you. It makes sense to you to pick up those breadcrumbs, but it doesn't really to anybody else, and that's fine. But you just got to be aware of that. And I know it from my story, when I look back, I'm like, oh, it actually totally made sense that I pick up this breadcrumb. But only now, looking back, I mean, I'm 38, so looking back over the last, like, I don't know, 20 years of like, oh, actually, that makes sense that I did that then.
It doesn't always make sense at the time. It doesn't. And you know, I have a degree in media and communication, film and TV, and up until probably 3 or 4 months ago, didn't really connect the dots, because I was sort of saying, oh my gosh, everyone has a degree that they don't actually work in. But so much of the work that I do is around content creation and repurposing your content and getting your message out there and sharing it with the world. And it just clicked to me that so much of the things that I learned from being, on that path have actually really supported me in doing the work that I do. So it's wild. And it's, I think what I notice a lot with new business owners is that they can have a tendency to go, oh, I'm doing this now, and then just like throw everything they did before that in the bin. And I think it's so important to actually bring all of those skills and that knowledge with you as you move into a new career or business, because those pieces are what make us unique and actually give us like a melting pot of what we can do that just stands out from what other people are now.
I mean, the stories you have are the stories that made you, are like also the ones where you're like, oh, right? Like, I read this, it was like a really cheesy Pinterest quote, but I quite liked it. It was something like, so your weird is someone else's finally.
Oh, that's
I was
really
like,
good.
that's really cheesy, but I quite like it.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that's all the things that make us kind of weird, right? Like all the picking up breadcrumbs and going left and right or up and down and not really knowing where to go at any given moment, but just kind of like still putting one foot in front of the other and trying things out, right? Because especially when you're at the beginning, like you don't know what will work, and not just from like a monetarily point of view, but also like from, do you actually like doing that?
Yes.
Right? Because so many people come in because they're great at, like, I mostly work with service providers, so they become entrepreneurs because they're exceptionally good at what they do. They come in and be like, hey, I'm an exceptionally good wedding photographer, so I'm going to be an exceptionally good business owner. And those are not necessarily the same things. And then they're realizing, oh, I'm actually quite a shitty business owner. Does that mean I'm a shitty photographer too?
Yes.
And like, no. Again, not the same thing. But your mind is like, it's very weird how sometimes it works.
Absolutely. That is far and away the number one thing that people say to me and ask me about. They just say, I just want to do the thing that I started my business to do. And I say to them, I'm so sorry to be the one to break this to you, but that is not running a business. There are fundamental things that you need to do in your business, or, you know, get to a point where you can outsource those things that you're going to need to do in order for your business to function as a business.
Yeah.
And most of those have nothing to do with the service that you provide.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard reality, because you're absolutely right. Most people don't get into business to be social media experts and advertising and marketing and sales people and content creators and admin people. Like no one wants to be an expert in Facebook
legal
ads.
people, legal persons, and like
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and at the same time, especially what you said, like with social media and content, which is kind of like our bridge into visibility, it's, let's put it this way, you don't need social media to run a business, but you need some channel that helps you build visibility. Yes. I don't care if it's LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, I don't know, like in-person events, when that's going to be a thing again. Like, it doesn't matter, but you need some kind of platform that you'll feel comfortable with engaging in a consistent manner. Let's put it like this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a saying when people tell me that they don't want to be on social media and don't want to participate in that at all. And I say, that's fine. You can do whatever you want, but you have to do something.
Yeah.
You have to have some way of connecting with your people and engaging them, because that's how this business works, especially for service-based business people. But even if you're selling products and things, you have to have a community of people who have buy-in, who are invested in the work that you do or the products that you create. Otherwise, you don't have a business.
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of doesn't work without that.
Yeah, I mean, it will. Yeah, it could be then, I don't know, it might be your hobby, but or there's especially at the beginning, right? Like, I mean, you focus on too many things, right? You're doing all the social channels and everything. I don't know. And when I talk to my clients, they're always like, oh, okay. Like, we map out like client experiences journey, and every kind of like touch point is kind of like where they come into contact with your brand. And that is like, obviously that's everywhere, right? Like, it's your social media channels, it's your website, it's your email letter, it's your invoice, it's I don't know, it's so many little details, and they're like, okay, this is overwhelming. And then and at the same time they're like, oh, but I really want to gain followers on Instagram. Well, okay, if you want to do followers on Instagram, you gotta post weekly, daily. You gotta do reels. You gotta have to keep up with whatever Instagram is putting in front of you, and you gotta eat it because you want to play with. There's someone else's games, and you got to play with the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, and then that's what I'm curious. Like, when you start out, you'll get all that, right? Like, visibility is important, blah, 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 blah. And then you go out, and people do it for like when you get a gym membership, you do it for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and then you're like, I actually no. And they kind of like go back, they go back into their little shell and be like, nope, not gonna do that. And then disappear for like 6-7 months, which is fine. There's no problem with that. But they're like, but I want to, but I can't.
Yes.
What's your experiences with like that, like high and then valley of despair when it comes to visibility?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a big deal. And it really is something that I think we're probably not prepared for when we first decide to start a business, because of what we just said about the fact that most people didn't start their businesses to, be thinking about all of these different aspects
TikTok
of their
dances.
business. Yeah, for sure. And I think there's a bunch of different things to think about in terms of like, why am I doing this in the first place? Because the vanity metrics of likes and follows and all of those things on social media platforms, are they actually translating to clients and customers?
Yeah.
And how much time and energy is going into that stuff for it to be, what's the kind of, I guess, return on investment, to use that terminology. And is that like, so many people, again, I work with a lot of new coaches and energy healers and people who work in that more like creating a service of without a tangible outcome, which is very tricky to talk about sometimes in the online space, in the selling and sales and marketing.
No, I get it.
Well.
Yeah.
And so there's almost like this mentality that's been adopted, or that I see over and over again, is like, I started my business, I did my course, I launched my website, I've got my Instagram account, where are my clients? I need 10 clients a month, so I can quit my job. And it's like, okay, it doesn't work like that. I love that for you. I wish that you could just post something on Instagram and then suddenly have 10 clients wanting to work with you in amongst all the other people that their attention is being taken from. And exactly like you said, you have to, if you're going to be on those platforms, you need to keep up with the demand of what they're asking of you in order to be seen. And also, I think a lot of it is about either, well, that's the framework I'm supposed to be following because that's how I get successful, or it's like, oh, that's the next shiny thing. So I want to get this, I want to reach this level on Instagram, and I want to have this many email subscribers. And the reality is, when you're first starting out, you need to be connecting with people in a much more one-on-one kind of way.
Yes.
Because the first clients that you work with are so much going to be people that are probably already connected with you in some way.
Yes.
And then from there, you're able to take
I'd say
the results.
Put that up to like somewhere between 80 and 90%. Like,
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
Yeah,
totally agree. The chances that those people already know you and are familiar with you, unless you have an incredible marketing plan and you've already got an established following on social media, the chances that people are already going to know you. Then you get the amazing testimonials and feedback.
Yes, but I mean, that's different, right? Like it's
a process.
Already have a coaching business, and then you decide, I don't know, I'm gonna pivot or something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Or if you a photographer and then pivot to coaching, you already got a base.
Yeah.
But if you're really starting from scratch, like newsletter list 0, Instagram followers 0, TikTok followers 0, like website visitors 2, you and your mom, and that's because you didn't exclude your server, your own IPN number, which you should. But anyway, this is so true. Like, people start to invest so much into like, content and ads, and whereas I don't know, it's almost like there's a level of, it seems easier. Right? It seems easier to talk into a void, to talk to strangers, than showing up vulnerability and showing vulnerability towards people you already know.
Yeah.
Possibly for fear of judgment.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's, I don't know, I'm gonna take the easy route.
Yeah.
Which it's not, it seems easier.
Yes.
But yeah, it's so true. Your first couple of clients will most definitely come from your already existing network.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Because there's so much else. Oh, that always brings me to that. I once saw like one of those like how to run a $27 business empire masterclass. I was enrolling because I was like, I'm curious. Like what is she really telling people? And like, oh yeah, if you're starting out, $97 offers might not be the case to go after. Just because you need a big volume of people.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't know. So that's that side remark.
Yeah, and I mean, I think what was actually even deeper than that, and like to go one level below that, is there's actually proof out there, proof that exists that no matter which model you choose or which platform or where you put your energy, there will absolutely be people who have had incredible success with that, and there will be also a huge amount of people that have not had success at that. And I think the biggest thing is that we don't stick with something long enough to really give it a go and go, you know what, I'm going all in on this, I'm giving it a year, and I'm gonna keep trying, rinse, repeat, evolve.
Yeah, and we're doing the gym membership thing all over again, right? We're
doing it exactly.
Like, I don't know, the six pack, and you're like, yeah, well, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, I know someone who makes 50, 60 grand a month, and her highest paid offer is $700, and it's for a yearly mastermind.
Yeah.
She's made an incredible amount of money, recurring revenue, selling $27, $47 products. But I also know there's lots of people out there who only do high end, and there are YouTube millionaires, and there are, you know, people who've had incredible success doing podcasts and LinkedIn and Facebook groups. And so and people always say to me, well, which path should I take? And it's kind of like, well, it doesn't really matter. It's like the Alice in Wonderland, right? Which just like the scenic route, it kind of feels like it works.
Yeah, we're all mad at that here.
Yeah, the Cheshire Cat, when Alice comes across the cat and she says, which way should I go? And the Cheshire Cat says, well, where do you want to end up? And she says, oh, it doesn't really matter. And he's like, well, it doesn't really matter which way you go.
Yeah.
Any of those options could absolutely work and be amazing for you, or they could also not work and not feel aligned. And so there's like a self-awareness element of, okay, what am I prepared to do? What am I prepared to commit
exactly.
to?
What am I prepared to do? Right? Like, that's the thing. Like,
you want to do $27 offers, you're going to have to get,
do you want to do 100K in 10 days?
Huge amount of people. Yeah. Right.
But like, are you willing to do what it takes, or to, and I mean, talking to some level of sacrifice, like, right? Like, what is it worth to you? What are you willing to do? And I don't know. Personally, I'll be like, well, I don't know. I kind of like it, but I don't want to have it that badly. So I'm not willing to do this. Well, and it might be, but like, I mean, I remember, like, I feel this deeply. Like, I was in a mastermind where I kind of like in 2019, where I kind of like built a business that was like on how it should be done, like blah blah blah. And I ended up being like, nah,
I've also done that.
This is shit. I don't like it. And I spent 2021 focusing slowly on what feels fun, like really just like, ooh, a fun breadcrumb. Going to the next one, fun breadcrumb. Oh no, right? Like, just not being like, oh, what is like the big quarter end goal, the big year end goal? Like, no, fuck it, right? Like, just see where it goes. And like, surprise, 2021 was my most successful year in business yet. Right? Because it's taking you bringing in the element of curiosity and play again, right? Where you're like, hey, look, I don't know which path to choose. I just gotta try one. Stick with it and do it one time. And if it makes me feel good, I'm gonna do it another time. If it doesn't make me feel good, stop that shit. Right? Like, because what you said, right? Like, you gotta stick with something for a year. Let's say if you want to build your email list, stick with it for a year. If you want to really get organic traffic to your website, focus on SEO for a year, right? Like, but to do that, you either just gotta push through to the entire year, but we're not those kind of people. So you have to feel good in the process, right? You have to feel good. It has to be fun doing that every time. Otherwise, you'll be like, nah, I'm not gonna show up on social today. And then today will become tomorrow, and then a week, and then a month, and then so on.
Just like the gym.
Just like the gym.
And then it's so much harder to get back into it as well, similar to the gym, because you've lost that momentum. And, you know, it's interesting because even as we're talking about this, I'm not a consistent person. Consistency is not my jam. I am a projector in the human design. I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm neurodivergent. Every...
I got it. What are you? I'm a 5'1".
I'm a 4'6".
Ooh.
4'6". Yeah. So it's kind of, okay, hang on. Like, consistency is not for me showing up every day on Instagram. And it's not like sending a newsletter at the same time every single week. When I think about consistency for the way that my energy works, for the way that my brain works, and the way that just everything functions in my business as a super highly sensitive, intuitive person, it's actually showing up consistently for the work. And what that means for me is like the deeper journey that I'm on personally in this lifetime, that the business is a container for that work to be realized and actualized for myself as part of my journey. And this is, I always say, it's like, that's like a waterfall, right? It's like one of those huge, big waterfalls. And a business is like holding a glass under the waterfall so that you can capture the essence of it and then share it with other people who are looking for that transformation or on a similar journey. And so it's kind of like showing up for that. And knowing that if same as with you, if it's I love that you're a projector as well, so you just get it. So no wonder we're like, oh yeah, that's exactly how I do things. Joy and rest and all of these things that are kind of so counterintuitive to the hustle culture of the online business world are the things that make us thrive, are the things that invite the right people into our spaces, are the things that energize and nourish us. And so showing up consistently for me does not look like an everyday in a certain way. It looks like, hey, what's feeling really good today? What's feeling fun today? Do I need to rest today? Yeah, I do, because I know that when I rest, I'm going to come back so much better tomorrow. And
I love that.
Being in that process and that energy versus, oh my gosh, it's 3 p.m. I have to post something on Instagram right now. Otherwise, I'm a failure.
I'm losing momentum, losing traction.
I'll never make it. I'll never make it in business if I'm not always be selling.
That's the fun thing though, right? Like, it's kind of like the reframe of we kind of have this notion of visibility as something of, like, I mean, it's in the word itself, I suppose, right? Like, visibility as kind of like the degree to which things may be seen, right? And it's that iceberg thing, right? Like, I mean, we see only the tip of the iceberg, which is kind of like the post on Instagram, the new blog post, the new podcast episode, right? But there's so much under the water that also counts towards us actually peeking through the water and like, hey, this is the blog post. And rest is part of that, right? It's just, I love that kind of like reframe of really being, hey, you know, and what we said at the beginning and what the term you coined was kind of like the seasons of visibility. Like, how not just seeing it as, oh, that one thing that is visible to others, but actually seeing it as a whole.
Because there's such a focus, I think, in the messaging around the summer phase, the highly visible phase of launching and being everywhere. And like I said, that hashtag always be selling. And this idea, and there's so many levels that we can go to in the conversation, because it's this capitalist kind of mindset of exponential growth. You always have to be just like every year adding more and more.
Yeah, we just gotta
and revenue.
we just gotta increase
and
revenue and profit margins just because we do. That's how we roll. Yeah,
because that's what the conditioning is, right? And so when I started thinking about launching, about business, about visibility in a cyclical way, that started to just feel really good. And so, you're in your spring phase and you're planning and you're planting those seeds, and you may be plotting out what's coming, and you're nurturing your people, and you're inviting people into your world and your community. And then, like I said, summer is kind of maybe your launch phase where you're on podcasts and you've got different things going out, and it being a cycle or a season as it makes sense to you, and the offer and the business model and all of the things that you might go through all of the seasons in a month, or that might be your whole year, or you might be in winter where you're resting and renewing and evolving for 6 months. And then you come out and, same as you, I walked away from my business. I was in business for 2 years. I followed all the rules. I did all the things I was supposed to do. I completely burnt out because projector, and then walked away from my business for 3 years. It was like a 3-year winter. And then came back in the spring, and it had a whole new energy to it. It had a whole new set of boundaries and dedication and commitment to what I wanted it to look like, and joy and fun and all of the things.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's not just about selling and sales and marketing all the time, which I think we just see so much of. And sometimes it's about taking a step back and evolving what, not just trying an idea, for a month and going, no, that didn't work, throw that out, start again, but actually going through the process of evolving a strategy or an offer or an idea over multiple seasons, so that it can actually grow roots and become something, versus like, oh no, that didn't work, okay, I'm gonna try and be a TikTok star. Okay, that didn't work, I'm gonna try and launch a high-end mastermind or a low ticket offer, and then scrapping it and doing something else, instead of actually in the sustainable way of just continuing to evolve and go, oh, this feels really good, I love the way this is going, I love the people it's attracting and the direction it's going. I'm going to sit with it for a while, even if that means it's slow and it looks different to what my friends and my mentors and the people I follow on social media are doing. I'm just going to be with this and allow it to unfold and show itself to me. So that's kind of how the seasons of visibility came
I
to
love
be.
that. And like, there are so many components to this, like, especially like what I see, what most of my service providers, like, well, they're not like jumping ship entirely, right? But they're like, oh, okay, so this offer didn't work. Okay, cool. I gotta do a new offer. I'm gonna introduce a new offer. And then I don't know, they're like, yeah, okay, then I'm gonna do a new offer. And like, that's fine if you have given it truly the time to plant the seeds, watch it grow, and then reap the fruit. Or there are no fruits. Okay, then maybe the soil wasn't right, whatever. But like, sometimes it's really so, I feel one of the critical things when people don't stick with offers is that in the offer, it's like with the business, it's same to the business, but it goes actually down to the offer itself, where they're like, so like following someone else's blueprint offer. Right? Like, they're like, oh, okay, so I see, okay, I know, okay, I gotta do a mastermind. Okay, mastermind means I gotta do, I don't know, weekly calls, monthly calls, I gotta have a Voxer group, I gotta have a Slack channel, I gotta have a Facebook group, whatever. And you're kind of like putting that all together because what you think it should be, to get, I don't know, to create worth, to make it worthwhile. And it's not sustainable for you, probably, to do all these things. I don't know. And you're not really into the offer in a certain energetic level that allows you to watch it grow. Right? Like, and another thing is that is really important to, if the the headspace of I give it time to grow. This needs to be a comfortable headspace. If you're worrying about how you're paying your bills at the end of the month, watching it grow slowly will be very, very painful. Because it's almost impossible, right? Because you attach so much pressure onto it. Like I don't know, you have this little tiny tree and you're already be like, oh, I'm gonna string it around the hammock and just like, and this she goes like, boom, right?
Yes.
Like it's really, and then come to a place of like, okay, yes, I want to make money, but I can also create financial safety for myself outside of that offer being successful now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I use that analogy all the time that, like, especially at the start, your business is like a little baby seedling. And it's like you're just stomping around like you need to be making more money. It doesn't just put a lot of pressure on the business, a brand new business, or even a business that's been around maybe for a while and it just hasn't quite grown roots yet. It's a lot of pressure to put on that. It's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. The energy behind desperately trying to get new clients, even if people don't know that, they can feel it, the energy of it, of that desperation. And then as well, it's very hard to create from that place. It's very hard to hold space from that place when you're panicking about money and whether this business is going to exist next month and, you know, am I going to have to get a job and all of that. And it's really hard to create from that, from that nothing, that scarcity or that nothing. And so I always say to people, keep a job or get another income or create another income source of income so that you don't have to feel pressured. Like you're trying to create this business because you want more for your life and your work and your purpose. Like don't create something that you end up resenting and hating and feeling just as drained and worn out by. You just stay working in a job because jobs are way easier.
But like that's the thing, right? Like that's exactly the point though. There are people who are extremely motivated when they have their back to the wall and they're like, okay, I know I got this, gotta make me 5K in the next 3 weeks or I'm not gonna be able, blah, 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 blah. If that's you, that's cool. Awesome. Go you, right? But for me, most of my clients, I'd say I go out on a limb. Most people on the scenic route, they're like, no, not having any of this. We kind of freeze. We go into like in our submarine and dive under. And it's just like, you gotta, and I love what you said, right? Like, I mean, that's also, I had coaching clients where I said like, look, I feel this is really stressing you out. What can you do to relieve the that stress level? They were like, I might get a job. Or I might stay in corporate a bit longer. Yes. And I mean, same, right? Like when I started out on my own in 2017, I think it was 2018, where I was like, you know what? Partly fun, partly also, you know, I want to try different things and it's a nice little stable income. I did like the run up to Christmas shift at Lush Cosmetics, right? Because I was like, I'm in touch with people. I get to do sales. I don't know. I gotta get awesome products. Like it's fine. Like it's cool. I'm taking something from it. And at the same time, it's a job that like when I'm out of there, I'm out of there. I'm not thinking of it all the time. So when I'm out of there at like 4 p.m., I still have time to devote to my business and building it up in a way I want to. And is it glamorous? No. Right? Like, is it what most people like tell you to do? No. It's actually the opposite. There's so much shame in the side business or whatever. It's like, no, actually it's cool. Whatever. If it works for you, just go.
And some people really need that diversity in their week as well, to have somewhere to go or to have something to show up for. That was one of the biggest struggles that I had when I was transitioning into my business. And even in the first couple of years, you know, I always say this, I was so lucky, and people are always like, that's not really lucky, but I always say I was so lucky because I never had a stable income. I've never worked a job where I just knew until I quit that job, I would have that money coming in, because I was a freelancer. So it would work for a certain amount of time, and there would be nothing at the end, and you just be like, okay, cool. But what that did was that trained me for the inconsistent income that comes with having a business. And I know most people just aren't okay with that. Whereas that has never really bothered me. I'm just like, oh, this month isn't that great, but next month will be fine, you know? And it'll all even out. It'll work out, or whatever that is. But I also used to take contracts when I needed extra cash. If I could get a really short-term contract, or I could get something where I could do it from home. And there is this,
if it aligns with your values. And
even
you're like
if you just need some cash, sometimes you know,
exactly.
I've written blog posts for organizations that needed someone to write blog posts for them and gotten paid from that. You know, I've done transcribing, and that's what, you know, I used to do a lot of that in TV, where you just like, they'd send you clips and you just transcribe it, and like you just do what you need to do to get the bills paid, and to take the pressure off the business from being everything while you're building it. And I really only softened into that being okay when I read Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and she talked about how she never has asked her creativity to support her. That she said when she was like 16 years old, I will always take care of us. And even when Eat, Pray, Love became an international bestseller, she still had a job because she didn't want to take away from the creativity. And I just think we need to kind of get over that being such a big message of like, quit your job in 6 months and make 6 figures and all of that. Because it's just not realistic for every single person.
No, it isn't. And it's, and I love that you bring up Elizabeth Gilbert, because it's really that, right? Like if you add too much pressure on it, it can rob some of the joy and some of the magic, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
it's hard. It's hard to get up every single day and show up when you have no boss and there's no one asking you for certain things. It's actually can be really hard sometimes. And so if you don't love it, if you don't get joy out of all of the parts, including paying invoices and, you know, having to work out content plans and things, if you can find a way to fall in love with all of those little pieces, it makes it so much easier to show up on those days where you're kind of like, oh, I'm a bit over it.
And I feel like for us, it's like for us, I mean, I don't know, I'm highly sensitive, and but I'm still kind of like introvert, extrovert, not so sure, kind of bit both, but like it really is that, right? Like when we're not feeling good while we're doing it, we will not stick with it, not to see any results of whatsoever. Right? Like it's important. Like, I don't know, I say not possible. Like for the people who are wired the way we are, like you gotta, and I love that what you said with the season of visibility, right? Like you gotta incorporate everything into it to kind of like be like, hey, this is actually, I'm wired like this. I'm wired like a projector, an introvert, extrovert, HSP, whatever it is. And like gonna show up like, and I'm going to show up.
I'm going to show up in the way that supports my energy today. And some days that energy might be amazing and you're so switched on, or you meet someone who you just have a connection with, and you can have an amazing conversation with. And then some days that looks like doing what I call like low energy activities, which might be like filing and, you know, digitally cleaning up your Google Drive,
or your CRM,
you know, creating Canva graphics, things where you don't have to talk to anyone. Like actually being more in reverence and in honoring of your own energy first and what you need before you start like kind of following somebody else's steps to success and methods for success. Because time and time again, I've been in programs, I've seen programs where it's so much about trying to shove people into a certain box, and it's like, oh, well, you didn't get that right because you didn't do this, this, and this, versus, hey, who are you? What feels really good for you? And what do you need on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that's going to support you to be the best you can be and to show up in the work that you're here to do? And that is not a one size fits all model.
No.
And it really is about knowing yourself first, and then finding strategies, finding modalities, finding platforms and ways to do things, and business models and strategies that, I think I said strategies already, but that actually fit in with your values and your energy and your strengths, versus like trying to weave in and fit into something else that just is never going to be aligned for you.
Yeah, I love that. And like, and maybe we can devote like another couple of minutes to like, okay, so if you're listening now and think like, okay, I got that, but how do I start? Right? Like, let's go into some practicality. Like, when you said about, okay, the seasons, right? I'm like, oh, this is not just visibility, but like, I also like, I know what to do, what I do when, right? Like I kind of really made a breakdown of all the things I do, right? Like updating legal work, updating website, focusing on SEO, like, I don't know, all the bits and pieces, or like doing like writing content or designing content. And I realized, okay, for writing content, I need to be in my spring or summer season. Like, I need to be high energy. Like, otherwise, this is not going to work. This writing is really, it's a great outlet to me, but it's also a really intense one.
Yeah.
Whereas designing, like, for example, the Instagram post or whatever, the design, really like the design, I can do that in my autumn or winter period, because I'm like, after 28 years in working in design, this is not something I think about. Like, I have all my great brand identity pieces, and I'm moving them together, and it's okay, it's done, right? Like, so I actually going through all your tasks and seeing when do they come most effortlessly to you.
Yeah.
Or how would you approach it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great way to do it, because I think as well, sometimes we don't realize, like, a lot of my own personal journey and a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of time and energy is actually spent just like, okay, I've got to work on my business today, and then trying to work out what they need to do. Because they don't have systems, and because like, you know, and I get this, I bucked against that for a really long time of like, oh, I'm such an intuitive, flowy person, I don't need all that rigid structure. I've just like tried to escape all of that. But I always say it's kind of like a river. So if you're like a flowy river and there are no banks, that just ends up being flood and disaster. Whereas you'll be so much more efficient and contained and focused when there's actually some structure to flow within. So yes, I love that. Make a list of all of the tasks and things that you already are doing every day, and not only work out, okay, when do I feel really good to do those? When's a really great phase or energy for me to be in, and how long do these things take, and what could be outsourced, because some things we just can't, for our own personal things we love doing. But you know, if I know I will never outsource any of my writing stuff, because that is my voice. And so it's knowing what you would, even if you don't have the budget right now to outsource it, but knowing what you could outsource when you do. And so that's why the spring phase is called plan and nurture. So it's actually sitting down and going, okay, what's been going really well, what that I've been already doing for those people who are kind of wanting to reset, and what's coming up. So do I have a launch coming up? Is it time to start getting some new clients? Is my mastermind starting? Am I launching a new product? And actually plotting that out over a course of weeks or months based on what that looks like for you and feels like for you. Because the other thing that I think people do is they go, oh, I'm in summer, and they go, oh my gosh, I'm launching something on Wednesday, and they haven't done any warming up and lead up to that, so their people aren't ready for it, and then they're like, why did no one sign up for that? And it's because you actually didn't prep them or yourself for that to be something that people were ready and waiting for. And so the plan and nurture phase is actually just sitting down and going, okay, where am I at? What's been working well?
Yeah.
What am I getting ready for? And then what does that look like in terms of what content needs to be created? Do I need to call someone in to help me with some advertising?
Yeah.
You know, how many people, how much, like all of the admin kind of bits and pieces to work out. And then actually going so that every day when you're showing up, or however many days a week that is for your business, you sit down and you know exactly what you need to get done. And then what I do is same as you. I'm like, what am I feeling in the energy for today? And it's like, oh, it's a low energy day. Okay, today I'm focusing on this list.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the energy.
Doing things. Yes, that's the thing, right? Like, it's the same with where sometimes, I don't know, manifesting felt short because people feel like, oh, I'm manifesting. Well, but you actually also got to do stuff, right? Like, but it depends on like, as you said, like, okay, I'm manifesting this big launch. I'm breaking it down like into things I want to do, not the things I should do, but things I want to do. I'm actually willing to do to get this done, and then tracking these off and taking the liberty that you have as a business owner to like, hey, you know, I have no hard deadline coming up today, so I'm not feeling my high energy self. So I'm doing background work. I'm doing editing. I'm doing whatever it is. That gets me closer to where I want to go, but I'm not pushing through the high energy content writing piece today because it's not gonna work.
Yeah. You just know it when you're sitting at the computer trying to force yourself to do something that you're not in the right headspace for or the right energy for. It's just such a way. You may as well just take the whole day off at that point. I always say that. Yeah. Some days I'll sit here and I'll still do it. And then I go, I should have just done nothing today because I did not get anywhere.
That reminds me of like my time at university, you know, when you had like these big year exams at the end of the year and you would be like so fucking tired, like 2-3 weeks before. And you keep on reading the same sentence in your book for the seventh time until you're like, I probably should go to bed now.
Yeah. Don't think I'm taking anything else in or being effective at all. Yeah, absolutely.
Capacity overflowing. No. No, this is so true.
The law of diminishing returns. I think that's what that's called. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I love that. So I think that's a very practical tip for anyone who's listening. And also if we're really going back into kind of closing the loop of visibility when you're starting out, like we've said, like most 80-90%, we're both going out on a limb here, or even probably it's even higher than that.
Look, it could be because we're projectors as well.
True. Yes, absolutely true. We didn't know that we're both projectors when we said that. But true. If you're a money generator or something, then it's probably completely different.
It might be a little bit different. But I definitely have found in my experience that people need to know me before
absolutely.
They work with me.
Absolutely. That's why also my biggest channel is referrals.
Yeah.
Like I know people who work with me bring me 2 to 3 other people.
Yeah, that's so amazing.
Right? Like it's just because they know my weird and like, I don't know. So they're like, yeah, that's actually cool. And I don't know. So something also because I'm although I'm good at branding, I'm pretty shitty at marketing, which is not the same thing if you're listening. Yeah. So and I feel most projectors have a hard time with marketing. So but that's a completely different topic.
It's counterintuitive to what we're supposed to do. I know we could have a whole other conversation on that.
Yeah, we're gonna do it in season 2. We gotta talk about visibility for projects only. And like going back to most people will be in your network when you start out, especially as a service provider. You'll already know the people who will profit from that. So I'd say really focus on the right people, like and if you're like, oh, I don't know which channels should I do, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, like, well, firstly, you really like actually talk to those people. It's really, you gotta get vulnerable and actually be like, hey, I'm doing this thing. It's not a cold call because you know these people. Right? You're just like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I quit my job. I'm doing this. do you see a potential for us working together?
Yeah.
Right. And like finding the right people, as you've said, right? The niche thing, like finding the right people and giving yourself time and space to figure out who your right people are. And then also, and that's the kind of like the whole channel discussion, right? You have to get into the right room with the right people. Like, I mean, they're always like, oh, I always have clients where they're like, oh, but I don't know, should I focus more on Instagram or LinkedIn? Or like, well, that's what we're doing the brand strategy for. Like, who are your people and where are they? Like, if you're in a wedding, if you're a wedding photographer, let's say you're a wedding photographer and you're in a room full of divorced people, you're not going to make a sale. Newly divorced people, you're not going to make a sale.
People that don't want to get married.
You're not going to make a sale. But if you're like in a room of like newly engaged people, you might do a lot of sales. So kind of like the room where you're in is so important. And to really spend time on figuring that out.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, really important point. We're in a world where trending audios, picking the trending audio, picking the trending hashtags is such a big, jumping on a trend, whether it's on TikTok or Reels or whatever that might be. It's like, you might go viral, but you might go viral for all the wrong reasons. And I can totally speak to this because I occasionally show up on TikTok and do like random little videos. And one day I randomly posted a clip from Doctor Who that I was just really enjoying. And I just, for some reason, I don't even know why. I don't even know why I did it. Yeah. And it went viral. It has, it brought in all these followers that have nothing to do with my business or my niche or what I talk about.
Yeah.
So it's like you can create content.
The other side of the coin, right? Like
this is exactly the example of what you've just said. You can absolutely create content that goes viral, that is seen by a mass amount of people, that gets you heaps of followers, especially on a platform like TikTok. But it doesn't matter if they're not your people. I would rather have 100 followers who are just get me and love what I do and are interested in what I talk about than have 1 million followers who just don't care about me at all.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's the theory. Who wrote it? The
1,000
the
true
1,000 true fans. Yes. Right. You read it like for most people, if you have 1,000 people who buy $100 service or product from you, you have a revenue of 100,000.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also already pretty decent, right? Like, so rather focusing on, and that's why, like, to close the loop, that's why at the beginning it will be easier to sell to people who know and to sell high ticket to them.
Yeah.
To like sell them an 8K package, so you get your 8K, then selling a $27 offer to like 5,000 people every month.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Unless you're an ads guru and you can set up Facebook ads and smash it that way and use that as lead generation.
I love that you bring this up, but then you got to have at least an ad spend of $2K a day.
Exactly. See, you got to pick something. Yeah, you've just got to pick something and go with it and know that the people who have done really well, no matter which way they've gone about it, they have done it by showing up and sticking with it and not jumping from one shiny object to another, and and becoming really a craft, taking that as a craft.
Yeah, to let it build
what's that called?
Traction.
Becoming a craftsperson in that, like becoming an expert in a very small thing versus trying to do everything and doing it badly.
Absolutely. And so I know you brought us something for our listeners to also help with staying engaged and like consistent. You brought us a 30-day content planner. Do you want to tell us something about it?
Yeah, so one of the things that I find people really struggle with is just actually coming up with ideas of what to create content around.
I have nothing new to say.
And I have nothing that hasn't already been said, and I just spend so much time.
That's why I didn't want to do a podcast for years.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's so many podcasters, there's so many people on Instagram, there's so many YouTubers, like everything's already out there. How can you make it about showing up for the work and sharing in a way that is actually showcasing what you do versus trying to like jump on that trend or whatever that might be. So yeah, the 30-day content planner is kind of a piece out of the content ecosystem, which is hilariously a $37 that really is about actually repurposing and making the most of your content. And so like hilariously freebie taken out of something that already exists, which exists within my other work.
So the repurpose meta
it's all about how can you, and again, when you're in that winter phase, when you're not in summer and in that ability to be showing up all of the time, how can you actually create a system that posts for you so you are still around without having to be just on all the time? So the content planner is just a really simple system of questions and just ideas of things to showcase your work and take pieces from your freebie and your paid offers that you can then turn into free content to pull in the right people. So yeah, that's what the freebie is.
I love it. Okay, that sounds super. Just to kind of like get curious and get ideas. It will be linked in the show notes, so head over there. And Katherine, before we wrap up, I always ask one last question because I'm always needing new input. What book are you currently reading?
Oh my goodness. I am currently, I always have like 6 books on the go.
Same. I always have like a business book, like a mindset book, and like, I don't know, a crime novel.
So I'm actually rereading Big Magic because I have been going through and marking it up, and I'd only ever read it once, and I can literally quote that book better than I've ever quote anything else, and I'd only read it once. So I'm rereading that. I've got my highlighters and my little sticky tabs and everything. It's so quotable. And I'm reading a fantasy book called Gideon the Knight. It's like a sci-fi book at the moment as well.
That's a genre I never warmed up to.
Sci-fi. Yeah, I'm not a massive reading sci-fi. I'm more of like fantasy, but yeah, it's kind of got a sci-fi element to it.
That's nice. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna check it out. I don't know. I'm always kind of like, I'm not into fantasy sci-fi, but they're amazing books, totally, and I probably should be like, I don't know, give it a try, and then if you're in the first couple of pages and you're like, this is shit, then get it. Sure. Listen, Katherine, it was an absolute blast to have you on the Scenic Route podcast with me today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad. We were saying, okay, 3rd time's the charm. If something happens this time, we'll stop and we'll try for another day. And I'm so glad that we were able
thank God we're in our favor.
Yeah, they finally gave us a break so we could get this done. And it's been an absolute joy talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.